The night my name wasn't on the program, I felt something inside me crack. I remember standing in the back of the church hall, clutching my purse as if it could hold me together, watching rows of people I once called family whisper and smile. My brother, Michael, was center stage, radiant, confident, while I stood in shadow. They had planned the ceremony, the speeches, the honors, and somehow my role didn't exist. I'm Elena. I grew up in a small coastal town where family names mattered and everyone knew everyone else's secrets. Michael and I were close as children, partners in mischief, allies in storms. He used to call me his first mate. We shared dreams, college scholarships, summer jobs on the docks, a life that felt anchored because we had each other. Somewhere along the way, things shifted. Michael's circle changed, and I felt the distance, as if a tide had pulled him away. When I arrived that evening, I assumed my name would be on the list. Perhaps a reading, a thank you, a small place among the honored. But the program in my hands was blank where mine should have been. I told myself it was a mistake. I stood in the hallway and watched guests find their seats. I watched Michael laugh with people who had once laughed with me. My throat tightened with a feeling I couldn't yet name. Disappointment laced with something sharper. A quiet sting that said, I no longer belong. "What are you doing back there?" a voice asked, soft and familiar. I turned and saw Aunt Rosa. She gave me a look full of gentle apology and a fake smile that tried to smooth over the crack in the room. "They thought it would be better this way," she said, the words soft but firm. I felt like an extra in my own life, a character whose role had been cut without explanation. But what I didn't know that night was that Michael had rehearsed every detail, not to snub me, but to surprise me. I didn't know that the very absence of my name was a thread that would pull a bigger truth out into the open. I sat down, my hands trembling, and let the ceremony begin, telling myself I would smile, I would be gracious, and that I would not let this small humiliation define me. Yet humiliation has a way of echoing, and the echo started to change something inside me, from numbness to attention, from confusion to a hard clarity. Everything shifted when Michael stood to speak. He looked more grown up than I remembered, but there was a softness in his eyes when he glanced toward me. He spoke about leadership and responsibility, about people who guided us through impossible waters. His voice filled the room, and for a moment, I felt pride. Then he paused. "There's someone who has been my compass," he said. My breath caught. I thought perhaps he would call my name. Instead, he told a story, our story, from a perspective I had never heard. "You all remember when the storm took our summer boat," he began. "There was a girl who refused to leave it, who stayed until the tide calmed. She taught me what it meant to hold steady." People smiled. My heart thudded. He described the moment with tenderness, but he never said my name. That empty space where my name should have been sounded louder than any insult. After the ceremony, whispers followed me. Some offered pity. Others offered explanations I didn't want. It was supposed to be a surprise, they said. He had something symbolic planned. I tried to believe them. I wanted to believe Michael would never deliberately exclude me. But then someone handed me a small, polished box. Inside was an insignia, a tiny bronze anchor with the word Admiral etched in black. I laughed, but the laugh came out like a sob. Admiral? My brother had labeled me with a title, grand, unexpected, and oddly formal. I was flattered, and bewildered, and a little wounded. It felt like a label placed on me by someone else's imagination, as if my identity could be summed up in a pin. "This is for you," Michael said, stepping close. Up close, I saw fatigue in his face, the strain of choices he had made. "You were always the one who kept us steady," he told me. I thought it was time you had that name. Yet the way he had orchestrated my absence to surprise me left a sharp edge. I wanted to tell him, You didn't need to erase me to elevate me. Why make me feel small to make me look big? The contradiction stung. For days after, I replayed the ceremony. The hush when my name was missing. The way people circled around Michael like planets around a sun. I started to see patterns. Small. Revenge, as I learned, didn't mean tearing someone down. It meant reclaiming my story. I started small. I took the anchor pin and wore it to community meetings, to volunteer events, to the fishing co-op where I'd worked as a teenager. Every time someone asked about the pin, I told the truth, that it was a reminder that steadiness matters. I spoke up at meetings. I organized a cleanup of the shoreline when the town seemed to have forgotten its edges. Little by little, people began to look to me for guidance. They weren't looking to me because Michael named me. They were looking because I showed up and acted like the person I'd always been. The real turning point came the following summer. Michael faced a crisis of his own, something public, something that revealed mistakes he had made in his new position. The town buzzed with disappointment. I watched as people I'd seen at that ceremony asked who would step up now. I didn't hesitate. I gathered neighbors, organized a plan to support those affected, and offered clear, calm leadership. I did not relish his fall. I felt sorrow for what he had lost, but I could no longer allow his mistakes to define my worth. When he approached me later, defeated and ashamed, he didn't try to charm or explain. He simply said, "I am sorry. I thought I was protecting you by elevating you with a title, but I forgot the rest." I looked at him, my brother, flawed and human, and I felt a quiet peace. "You don't have to fix it all," I told him. "Just be honest next time." He nodded, and for the first time in a long while, our conversation wasn't about performance or image, it was about responsibility and truth. In the end, the revenge was not a spectacle. It was subtle and complete. I reclaimed my voice, my place, and my name without needing a dramatic showdown. I wore the anchor as a reminder, not of that night's sting, but of the strength I carried. Michael learned that gestures, however grand, are hollow without thought. And I learned that titles given to you can be meaningful, but the most lasting ones are the ones you earn by your actions. If there is a final lesson here, it is this. Being seen by others is precious, but being true to yourself is more important. You can wait for permission, or you can step forward. I chose to step forward. I became my own admiral, not because my brother called me one in a crowded room, but because I steered through my own storms and kept my hands steady on the wheel. That is the kind of honor that no program can print and no ceremony can take away.